All right, let's dive right into this explainer and look at a set of life-saving principles that anyone working around confined spaces absolutely has to know. When we talk about workplace safety, a lot of topics are just about avoiding a minor injury or maybe a bit of property damage. But today, we're looking at something entirely different. We're talking about environments where a single misstep or just a rush decision can literally be fatal. Whether you're dealing with guidelines from the HSE, OSHA, or WorkSafe, the core, unbreakable principle is exactly the same all over the world. Use simply do not enter a confined space unless that entry is strictly necessary, fully authorized, highly controlled, and backed up by a rock-solid rescue plan. So, let's explore exactly how we guarantee that happens. Before you even step foot near a tank, a pit, a silo, or a manhole, you've got to stop and ask yourself this one absolutely critical question. Can I do this safely? I know it seems like such a simple, almost obvious thing to ask, right? But here's the problem with confined spaces. They are incredibly deceptive. A massive, empty industrial vessel or a quiet underground pit might look completely calm and harmless from the outside, but that calm exterior is exactly what makes them so dangerous. These spaces often look perfectly fine on the outside, but you have to understand that the danger inside is almost always entirely invisible. You probably won't smell it, and you definitely won't get a warning. The threats hiding in that air are massive. You could be stepping into an atmosphere with way too little oxygen to keep you conscious, or one that's completely loaded with toxic or explosive gases. And honestly, it's not just the air. What about an unexpected release of materials suddenly pouring in? What about uncontrolled energy, or moving parts springing to life while you're trapped inside? And to top the whole thing off, if things do go wrong, your exit route is almost always extremely difficult. So, to survive these hidden dangers, we're going to meticulously walk through the 5 non-negotiable essential checks required before making any entry. Think of these as your 5 essential shields. Check 1 is authorization. Check 2 is air testing. Check 3 is zero energy. Check 4 is access and PPE. And check 5 is your rescue plan. Let's move straight to our first shield and start building that safety foundation with check 1, authorization. Is it truly necessary and permitted? You know what's really terrifying? A huge number of serious fatal accidents start with casual, everyday phrases, exactly like these. Just go in for a minute. It's only a quick look. Before you even consider putting on your gear, you have to verify that there is a valid entry permit, that the task is crystal clear, and most importantly, that your specific name is listed as an authorized entrant. And frankly, you should really ask yourself, does someone actually need to enter? Because if the job can be done from the outside, that is always, without fail, the safer option. These informal requests sound like harmless, helpful shortcuts between coworkers. But in a confined space, a quick look takes just as much time as it takes for a toxic gas to knock you out cold. The environment doesn't care if you're only planning to be in there for 60 seconds. Whenever you hear those red flags, you have to immediately pivot to the non-negotiable stop rule. No permit, no entry. If someone claims a permit isn't needed or the task isn't clearly defined, that is a glaring red flag right there. You stop. The rule here is entirely black and white. If there's no valid permit and no clear authorization, you simply do not enter. Period. Our second essential check deals with the very air you breathe. Check 2, air testing. We're looking at ventilated and monitored atmospheres. You absolutely cannot rely on your senses here. There might be too little oxygen, highly toxic gases, or a massive explosion risk right in front of your face. I know this is a tough habit to break because as humans, we naturally trust our senses. We think, well, if it looks clear and it doesn't smell bad, it's gotta be safe. But so many dangerous gases are entirely odorless and invisible. By the time you start feeling lightheaded, it is usually too late to climb out. That is exactly why the atmosphere has to be tested from the outside first, using a properly calibrated gas detector that's checking for oxygen levels, flammable gases, and any relevant toxins. So, if you hit a red flag, like an uncalibrated detector, a weird smell, or maybe the ventilation just suddenly quits, you pivot straight to the absolute stop rule. If that alarm sounds, you get out immediately. Don't ignore the detector just because you think it might be glitching. Don't try to push through just because the job is almost done. The stop rule is totally uncompromising. Leave immediately and do not continue. Essential check number 3 focuses on energy. Check 3, zero energy, which means isolating materials and inlets. The main thing to grasp here is that simply switching off a machine is never enough. You have to systematically follow these 3 steps to ensure absolutely nothing can start, move, flow, or enter that space while you're inside it. Think about everything connected to that area: electricity, steam, compressed air, hydraulic lines, chemical pipes, conveyors, the whole shebang. Hitting the off switch is not isolation. Someone could literally walk by and flip it right back on. Energy or material can still be sitting in those lines under massive pressure. You have to physically isolate it, lock it out, tag it, and then check it yourself to verify that zero energy has actually been achieved. Imagine asking the site manager, "Hey, which valves were locked off?" And they just reply, I think Dave got most of them." No way. That is a terrifying answer and a massive red flag. Apply the stop rule and refuse entry. If a valve is still connected, if material remains inside, or if there is no physical lockout in place, you're in real danger. The stop rule is crystal clear. If it is not isolated, locked, and verified, do not enter. Let's dive into check number 4. Check 4, access and PPE. Entering, communicating, and exiting safely. Because in a confined space, getting out can be significantly harder than getting in. Entering is the easy part. Gravity usually helps with that. But working, communicating, and eventually exiting safely takes real planning. Your access has to be clear and well lit. Your PPE has to actually let you move around safely. If your gear is so bulky you get stuck in the manhole, well, that's a huge problem. And if you require a retrieval system like a tripod or a lifeline, it has to be fully rigged up and ready to pull you out before you even cross the threshold. A blocked access point or losing your line of communication is an immediate red flag that triggers the stop rule. I mean, if you're inside a thick metal tank, your radio might not even work. If you don't have a reliable, continuous way to communicate with the outside world, you are effectively all alone in a highly hazardous environment. The absolute rule here is incredibly simple. If you cannot get out quickly and communicate at all times, do not enter. Finally, we reach our 5th essential check, your ultimate fail-safe. Check 5, rescue plan, featuring your dedicated standby person. This phrase right here brilliantly illustrates the single most dangerous mindset you can have on a job site. If something happens, we'll go in and pull them out. It sounds heroic, right? But historically, in confined space incidents, a massive percentage of fatalities are actually the would-be rescuers. Think about it. A worker collapses from toxic gas. Their coworker sees it, panics, holds their breath, and climbs in to save them. And a few seconds later, they collapse too. An improvised rescue almost always just creates a second victim. Rescue must be meticulously planned before the entry, never improvised after the accident. That standby person has to be dedicated solely to monitoring you from the outside. Their one and only job is to communicate with you, monitor the situation, and raise the alarm if things go south. If they wander off to fetch a tool or check their phone, you are entirely unprotected. The stop rule for our final shield: if there's no dedicated standby person and no formal rescue plan ready to deploy, do not enter. Now, let's put this all together and see how these checks apply when the pressure is actually on. The final test, validating the 5 shields. This really just brings it all home. It proves that the correct action always prioritizes formal verification over making deadly assumptions. No permit? Don't enter. Checking for gas? Trust the detector, never your nose. Need zero energy? Isolate, lock it, and verify. Don't just hit a switch. And in an emergency, the standby person has to activate the plan and call for help. They must never rush inside. These aren't just suggestions, folks. They are the correct, binary answers to scenarios that have unfortunately cost people their lives. If your answer to any of those 5 essential checks is a no, you must follow this absolute mantra. Stop, correct the issue, report it, and do not continue. Never try to push through a red flag just to get the job done faster. The job is never, ever more important than going home at the end of your shift. If even a single shield is missing, you stop, you fix it, and you report it so it doesn't happen to the next person. I'll leave you with this final thought. We've seen exactly how invisible the threats are in these spaces and how insanely quickly casual shortcuts can turn deadly. You're now equipped with the 5 essential shields: authorization, air testing, zero energy, access and PPE, and a solid rescue plan. Your life literally depends on structure over improvisation. So respect the space, respect the process, and before you cross that threshold, will you use these 5 checks to ensure you come home safely?